Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, June the 7th, Monday morning. I'm happy to be here. This is one child abuse survivor to another. I'm just waking up and having some coffee and getting ready for another week. And we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And today I wanted to continue talking about the coping list that I saw on the it's Michael C. Irving's website. It's the Child Abuse Monument website. And these coping lists are just awesome. There's some great information on that website. You can find this at www.irvingstudios.com. And you can go, or you can just type into your browser Child Abuse Monument, and it'll come up. It's in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And this Michael C. Irving is a psychotherapist. He's a sculptor as well. He's a survivor of child abuse himself, and he works to help child abuse survivors to work through their healing journey, and tries to help as many people as he can. I really like his website, and I like this child abuse survivor monument. It's I have never seen it personally, but I hope to be able to go to Toronto one day and check it out. But I've seen the pictures on the website, and it's just awesome. It's just amazing to see what he's done for so many people who have survived child abuse, and they've got all their handprints there, and representing the abuse that they went through, and artwork and stuff. It just allowed them to really present that to the world, what they went through and what it's like to be an abused child. And it's such a great monument, and I hope you will check out the website. So anyway, that's what we were continuing on here today with. That's what we left off Friday, looking at coping lists. There's a coping lists, good for everybody, not just people who are having a hard time, if they were abused as children. Well, a lot of people experience stress in their lives, and sometimes it just becomes overwhelming. So if you have a list of things that help you to remain calm and to bring peace into your heart, and to help you remain focused and kind of continue to get things done, and sort of help us in our day-to-day lives, right? It's a good idea, and especially if you find that you're just overwhelmed and really stressed out, it's a good idea to have a coping list. It's a good idea to have a coping list before that happens, and that way you can use it. We could use these coping lists when we really need them. And so that's why I really like this whole idea of having coping lists. I was going to do this a long time ago, actually, probably back in the winter time. I said, I should write down my own coping list, and I haven't done it yet. I've been really quite busy, and so this summer I really want to sit down and do this, because I know it's a good idea. You just never know what's going to trigger you if you're a survivor of abuse, domestic violence, domestic assault, sexual assault, just anyone who's been through a lot of trauma. Things can trigger you, and if you have your lists ahead of time, then it kind of helps you to be able to remain calm and to remain grounded and to remain focused, right? So that's the whole issue. So I wanted to make some of these coping lists for myself, because it is a good idea to personalize these coping lists. So that's the plan, and so we'll continue looking at these. So I'm not a professional. I don't hold any professional counseling or therapy certificates. I'm just a private citizen who pays to do my own blog talk show, really because I believe that the issues surrounding child abuse are not talked about enough in mainstream. There is a lot of voices out there, thank God, and we need more. And so I just wanted to be one more voice, and it's coming from one survivor to another. There's not very many people out there who can talk about the abuse that they went through, or even would feel comfortable doing it. And for me, I really want people to know that they're not alone, and that there is help out there, and that they're not the abuse that they suffered was not their fault, and that they need to really reach out and just make sure they're not suffering in silence, and get some help. You know what I mean? I suffered pretty much alone for so many years in this whole thing, that I'm so glad I reached out and got some help. And so I wanted to be one more voice, just to say, for people out there, if you're suffering and you've been abused as a child, and no one seems to care in your world, which was my case, and it's just so hard to cope, right? You just know that there are groups out there who do a lot of good work. There's online group support for child abuse survivors, adult survivors of child abuse. Quite a few groups. I actually used to belong to two of them. One of them I think is just awesome, and I actually left the group, but the people were just awesome, and it's just great to have somebody to talk to who can relate to what you're going through, what you've been through. And so that's the whole issue, right? It's so sad to be suffering in silence, and that's why I wanted to do this show. And also, if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have some sort of permission to listen to this show. There's a lot of adult content on all of my shows, and ultimately it is about stopping and preventing child abuse. But, I don't know how young the people are listening to the shows anymore because I don't know where the Blog Talk players are. So I would just hope that you would have someone okay it, that you can listen to the show, and that, you have someone in your life that cares about what you're doing online. There's millions of sexual predators out there, child sexual predators, and they are looking to get a hold of children, and they will use any means they can, to try to get a hold of children. So that's why I just ask everybody to get the information online on how to stay safe online, and then to make sure that you don't ever give out your real name, your address, your phone number, what school you go to. Don't give out personal information online in these chat rooms and stuff. You never know who is on the other side. They could say they're 12, 13, 14 years old, but they very well might be a 30-year-old child sexual predator. And so that's why it's very important for you to make sure you keep yourself safe. And the FBI's website, I love that website because there's all kinds of good information on there regarding online internet safety for parents and for children, and good tips on how to keep yourself safe. And it gives you a good idea on how many people out there are actually child sexual predators looking to get a hold of children and to abuse them in some way sexually, right? So that's the whole issue. There's, at any given time, I think they said there's 750,000 or something, I can't remember. You'd have to go check it out. But it's the FBI's website for internet safety, and that's a great website. I like to check it out every now and then. I try to pop in there and see what's going on because they are working really hard to bust those people, and they're working around the clock, really. And my hats are off to those guys because that's a big job, and I hope that they do eventually bust every single one of those child sexual predators. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll get started with this article I wanted to continue on with. Well, last Friday morning, we were looking at list number 1, which was make yourself a list of daily, weekly activities to take care of yourself, and we were talking about that because sometimes, especially if you've suffered, as a child in an abusive home and whatnot, sometimes you're just not shown how to do the normal things that most people would do, which is take care of yourself, right? I mean, it's very obvious, like people that suffer in abusive situations generally are not taken care of, and if their abusers are, so dysfunctional that they're not taking care of themselves, then the child just doesn't learn those skills, those everyday skills of just having a routine, getting up in the morning, having a shower, have a breakfast, take a walk, go to school, and then as an adult, you have to learn how to take care of yourselves, right? Like, and ourselves, we have to learn how to take care of ourselves, making sure that we get the proper amount of rest, and making sure that we eat properly, and that we get exercise, and that we make time for leisure and time for therapy and journaling and whatnot. It says here getting sufficient sleep and sleeping in on Saturday, just making sure that we get rest and whatnot. And then cleaning and vacuuming and stuff like that, and taking care of bills and whatnot. I threw that in there. Just the regular stuff that people, if you've survived an abusive childhood, can sometimes seem like a lot of work and maybe almost something that we can't do. And that's why it's important to have a list of daily, weekly activities to remind ourselves, to, hey, take that walk, get some extra rest, right? Because it's very, if you have to learn all this stuff as an adult, see, that's the problem. Like if you grow up in an abusive or dysfunctional home, it's very obvious that we have to correct a lot of bad behaviors and a lot of bad coping skills, because or maybe there were no coping skills, so we have to learn this stuff later in life, right? So that's the whole issue. So I think it's a good idea to have these coping lists. And the list number 2 is for boundaries. It says make yourself a list of what to do to create boundaries, and this is from www.irvingstudios.com/child_abuse_survivor_monument/activities. So you can find it at www.irvingstudios, or just type in Child Abuse Survivor Monument. It'll come right up. And it says what to do to create boundaries. It says many times when you are overstressed or in a crisis, problems with boundaries are part of the issue. Identify what the boundary problems are and what can be done to shore up your boundaries, and this can help you feel more comfortable. And there's a whole section actually right after this list that talks about boundaries and the issues surrounding it, and creating cognitive boundaries, identifying boundaries, creating physical boundaries, and creating containers and whatnot. So we'll keep going in that, but that's a little bit later down the article, and you can check that out yourself, like just by going to the website. And so they said here to make a list of what to do to create boundaries, right? And they list off some things here, and I'll just read through them. They say, tighten my belly, identify how I am feeling, say what I think, at least to myself, imagine a barrier around me, cross my arms, wear my shield pin. I guess, I don't know, there must be a pin you can wear. I guess, anything that makes you feel like if you have that pin on, you've created a boundary, right? And then it says, etc., make your own personalized list. And it says, the following are some ideas for the kinds of things that you may go on a what to do to relieve stress list. So there's all these different lists. There's one for daily activities, just like showering and whatnot. Then list number 2 is creating coping lists for boundary issues, right? And number 3 is for relieving stress, a list for managing stress, and that's list number 3. And it says here, burn up that stress. Releasing stress is a normal life activity. Whether conscious of it or not, we are doing something to drain away our life tensions every day. When these activities are skipped, people feel stressed. And stress relievers often involve some form of physical or mental exertion or pleasurable leisure activity. When you are stressed out, there are activities that will release or reduce your stress. And the actual activities that work for burning off tension are unique and idiosyncratic to each person. That's a big word. Idiosyncratic to each person. It helps you to know which activities are your personal stress releasers, right? It is likely that when you are having a hard time, you are not altogether clear on what you should be doing to manage your feelings. Getting a coping list written out is a starting point for helping yourself feel better. Remember to vary what you do to burn up tension, and also recognize what your most effective stress reducers are. So I guess we're supposed to be taking a good note of what's working, right? All this, if we go through and we start making our personalized coping lists, right? And one is for daily activities, the other one for boundaries, another one for releasing stress. If we find stuff that works, we're supposed to write it down, and maybe keep a little side list of what didn't work, and that way, maybe you could try it another time. Maybe it would work, sort of thing, right? But managing stress, number 3, is the third list. It says make yourself a list of what to do to relieve stress, and here's a whole bunch of stuff they actually list off here: brisk exercise, take a walk, shout into a pillow, write a note and tear it up. See, this is all good stuff, right? Especially if you're coming through, surviving child abuse. All child abuse is horrible. It doesn't matter what kind it is. It doesn't matter how long it went on. It all hurts, you know what I mean? And so shouting into a pillow is a great idea. Writing a note and tearing it up. That's what they say on quite a few websites, that if you want to relieve some stress and anger and stuff like that, you can write letters to your abusers, and you can choose whether or not to give. It's a good idea to take a moment, choose whether or not you would want to give them this letter, or maybe they're not even living, sort of thing, right? And if they aren't, then you can write the letter anyway, and then just tear it up to shreds. And it allows you to release the tension and that anger, right? And at that point, it's almost a step in a healing journey. And I can kind of see how that would be pretty good to help relieve stress, I think, because you could write whatever you wanted to on that paper, and then you could either save it for another day and bring it out, or you could just rip it to shreds and just say there. You know what I mean? But it's a good idea to have someone with you when you're experiencing those type of feelings, right? Because those are really hard emotions to go through, and it's bad to be suffering in silence like that, because it's too easy to sort of almost want to self-injure or hurt someone else when you're that emotional. It's just a good idea. I really hope everybody would get them. I know I didn't start reaching out until last fall, and so I sat around many years pretty much dealing with this on my own, and thinking that, okay, it's my own problem. Most people don't want to hear about it, so I had friends and stuff who knew some of it, and they just blew me off because they just felt I was too wounded and just had too many problems, and they just, which is really not a good friend if somebody's going to do that. And I spent years with these people, and so my heart was broken, my trust was broken with those people, and I was already suffering, and so shame on them. But oh well, life goes on, and I don't see that they'll ever have any good friends because they're just too rude. But anyway, you need good friends in your life, you know what I mean? And that's what I decided, that I'm only going to allow good people into my life, you know what I mean? I've been abused enough, I've had enough garbage in my lifetime, and so have many people, most of us, right? I mean, maybe I could say everybody on the planet has experienced something like this, you know what I mean? Where they've just had a lot of trouble with certain things, or relationships, or abusive people in their lives. So I mean, it's sad. It's so sad that we have to deal with this, but so true. It's so incredibly wrong. And yeah, I mean, I don't allow anybody else to abuse me, so I don't allow myself to be re-victimized. So that's the whole issue as a survivor of child abuse, right? We have to make sure that we get some good, strong, solid people in our lives that actually care and actually want to see us walk 100% free of this abuse, you know what I mean, and walk healthy and happy and whole. And so, don't allow yourself to be around people who are abusive towards you. It's just being re-victimized. Then a person starts to think, well, maybe this is all my life is ever going to be. And that's how I felt up until I was about 21. And I realized, I said, man, if I don't if I don't make the changes, it's never going to happen. And I'm just going to continue on in this lifestyle, that I just didn't want any part of anymore. So I'm glad I made the decision. And then, over the years, I've ran into a few people who were, not looking out for my best interest. And I thought, forget it. Life's too short. I'd rather just not have any friends than have a bunch of jerk friends. So that's the whole issue. And as far as a relationship with a partner goes, I was very, very much particular about who I share my life with, because I've already had enough trouble. I really need someone who's going to support me and really be there for me. You know what I mean? So that's the whole issue. It is very important that you don't become re-victimized, right? And that if you're going to do these exercises here for managing stress, you might want to have a person in your life, or someone who knows you're doing them, just to be on call and say, look, I'm going to do some of these activities here and on these lists, and just in case I need somebody to talk to, will you be available later, sort of thing, for a coffee or whatever, just so I can have someone to talk to. I really hope everybody has someone in their life like that, you know what I mean? Because we all deserve it, that's for sure. A good friend, you know what I mean? So, just to be aware of that. And also, it says here, you can tear up paper, just maybe a newspaper, just rip it to shreds. Pound clay with, if you have clay, you can just pound it and work it. Paint or draw. I've heard lots of people say that, that they like to paint or draw, and it really helps to let some of this the stress out, right? Just by painting or drawing. Write angry letters, tear up angry letters, fold the laundry, throw the socks at the wall. Socks don't generally hurt anything, and if you're just throwing them at the wall and bouncing them off the wall just to relieve some stress, right? Listen to music, chew gum, talk to someone, ride a bike, enjoy nature, throw rocks in the water, like tossing rocks or, skipping rocks or whatever. Use your humor, build something, clean, garden. These are just ideas, right? Take a sauna, whirlpool, or bath, etc. Make your own personalized coping list. So there's all kinds of things that they just list here for, for examples of how to manage stress in our lives. And, a lot of times I find when I'm really stressed out, what I've learned over the last few years especially, just to sit back and become grounded, right? And just realize, hey, okay, this doesn't have to spiral out of control. You know what I mean? Because I've had some pretty stressful stuff going on this last week, and it could have easily spiraled out of control. And I decided, no, I am not going to go that route. I am just going to sit back, and I'm going to reflect on what happened, and then I'm going to be grounded about it and remain focused. And that really helped me out a lot. Whereas years ago, I would have flown off the handle probably and lost it, completely lost it. Because this is some serious stuff that I'm going through right now. And years ago, I don't think I would have handled it as well. So I'm learning over the years, how to remain calm and cool and collected, right? But I wasn't shown that as a child. Anytime anything went wrong in our household, it was a crisis. So, if it wouldn't matter really what it was. If something was going on in the home, it was a crisis. And so there would be a lot of violence. And so that's the whole issue. When you grow up around that, that's how you deal with it. So that's how I dealt with it. You know what I mean? Like anytime there was an issue going on, I was just used to being involved in this violent, abusive environment. So then as an adult, something goes wrong, and automatically those same feelings come back, and that's how I relate to stress or deal with a crisis, which doesn't even necessarily mean it's a crisis. It could just be something stressful. And that's the whole issue. In my family, nothing was really had to even happen for it to be a crisis, right? My parents were very much had mental problems, right? My mom was manic depressive, and my dad was, and he still is, borderline schizophrenic and depressed. He does suffer from some depression, and so the two of them together were like this snowballing roller coaster wreck of a train on a collision course with destruction. You know what I mean? Like they just could not cope. And so they couldn't cope on their own, and they couldn't cope together, so they were just two non-coping people. And even today, my dad is unable to cope. He finds filling out paperwork is just like a crisis to him, having to fill out papers. It's the end of the world, and the government's going to come and get him, and, he'll end up in jail, or he's just got so many problems. But he never got any help, and we kept telling him to get help, even as adults. The siblings that are left in the family, I don't know why we bothered to even have anything to do with them, but we did. And so, we try to help him out, and he never wanted to go get any help, and he would not get any help, and he's not sick enough to be put away. So he just manages like everybody else, but he has a really hard time. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate to see somebody dealing with that when all they really should have done is just gone and got some help, right? Because that's so stupid. If he would have gone and got some help, he wouldn't have to be living a life of fear and mistrust and all this other garbage that he has going on in his life all the time. And so this is the whole issue, right? We have to get help, right? If we can't manage this stuff on our own and we make these coping lists, but they don't help, and we can't find anything that's going to help us out, nothing's working sort of thing, and our attitude is just spinning out of control, right? Then it's up to us to get the help as adult survivors, right? Because as children, we were forced to put up with something that we never should have had to put up with. To deal with things that we never should have had to deal with, and to feel things that we never should have had to feel as a young child. But as an adult, and of course you can't even help that, because when you're a child, you're just stuck in that situation. But as an adult, you're not. And that's why it's very important to make these very important, choices for ourselves. And that's why, my brothers did not obviously make the right choices. Two of my brothers are dead due to drug use. One committed suicide at the age of 33, which was an extremely bad choice, and the worst choice a person could make, as far as I'm concerned. And my other brother died of a drug overdose in a shelter at the age of 43, which was just a very slow death, and he knew what he was doing. Instead of going the other route that my other brother did, he just knew that eventually the drugs would take him out. And so he was also committing suicide on a very slow day-to-day path, And they both made the wrong choice, right? Because they never ever got to experience a good day. Never. They might have had a couple of good days in their lifetime, but they never got to know peace in their heart, a good day with peace in their heart, love in their heart, and be able to walk free from this garbage that we were made to suffer as children. And so that's the whole issue, right? We as adults have to make the right decisions and choices for ourselves and find what works for us. You know what I mean? Whether it's group support or a therapist, a counselor, a peer support. There's groups out there, but really have to be proactive in getting out there to find it, because nobody will even know your situation if you don't tell them, right? And a lot of people, like I've told friends and stuff, like I was talking about earlier, they just don't get it. Sometimes if they were abused themselves, they do understand, but then they don't want any part of it. But that's just because they're on their own healing journey, and they're not maybe as far along, or maybe they just think that you're not far enough along in your journey, right? So that's the whole thing. So it's a good idea to get some help. And I would suggest counseling and therapy. And I don't have any money to go. Otherwise, I would probably go and get a counselor or somebody to talk to. But the thing is eventually maybe I'll be able to afford to go. But I know there's online support out there because I belong to two of those groups, those child abuse survivor groups. There's a bunch out there actually. But the ASCA also has a group, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program at www.ascasupport.org. They have a great workbook called Survivor to Thriver workbook that we went through already a while back. And they also have group support, online, peer support, group support. If you're in a city that hosts their meetings, their chapter meetings, then you can go and be a part of it. So there is help out there, and we just have to make sure that we do reach out and get it, right? That's the whole issue. It is just so important because, we don't deserve to suffer anymore. We just really don't. If you've survived an abusive childhood in an abusive home, then, at some point we need to be able to say, hey, we deserve a good life. Why do we have to continue on in this mess our whole lives? That's what I kept saying. Do I have to live my whole life, like this? I hope not. And for a long time, until I was about 41 years old, I was seriously considering to ending my life. Periodically throughout the years, it would just come into my head that maybe I'd never be out of this pain and I would never be able to walk free from it. And, I didn't, thank God, didn't go through with it. You know what I mean? I knew the pain that it would cause the rest of my family members, and I thought, well, do I really want to do that to them? They've already suffered with one suicide in the family and another loss of life with my brother dying, and then one of my brothers was killed as well as a young teenager. He was 19 years old. So we've had a lot of death in our family, and I thought, man, do I want to do that to my family? So I kept hanging on, and I thought, man, I need to stay alive, right? And well, finally, at the age of 41, I decided I was going to fight to stay alive, instead of fight to die. And so that's the whole issue, right? I was just on a collision course with death all the time, and I thought, why do I have to continue on in this? You know what I mean? My parents put this on me, but I don't have to keep it. I can throw it away and I can start again. And I can have a good life, you know what I mean? I don't have to put up with their garbage anymore because it's pretty much there. My mom's passed away. My dad is still living, but he's extremely old, and I really, he'll be moving out soon, and he'll be moving on into a senior's lodge, and then, it'll be my choice if I want to spend time with him or not. And then I can move on and have a good life, but it's up to me to make it happen. No one's going to do it. And so that's the whole issue, right? We have to be in charge of our healing. We have to be in charge of our lives. And as children, we were made to suffer. But as adults, do we really have to continue on suffering? You know what I mean? Is it something that we have to do for the rest of our lives? That's what I was asking myself. You know what I mean? I was becoming very much honest with myself and sitting down and thinking, why is this? Why it was put on me as a child, but do I have to continue in it? And that was the big question. And I seriously sat there and I thought, no, I don't. I can have a good life just like everybody else deserves to have, full of love and laughter and joy and happiness and peace and goodness and mercy and compassion and kindness, all the good stuff, right? I don't have to be angry and mad and self-loathing and self-worthlessness and hating life and hating this world and hating my parents. I don't have to have that in my heart anymore. That was destroying me, you know what I mean? It was literally destroying me. So I changed it out with everything that was good. You know what I mean? And so, but it's a day-to-day walk. It doesn't just happen overnight, and it does take time. And it also, you have to be extremely honest with yourself, what kind of life you want to live for the rest of your days, right? And I wanted to have a good life, peaceful life, right? And wanted to help people and help as many people as I can, right? So that's my whole goal. So we have about a minute left, and I hope that you will just reach out and make sure that if you need something, get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio. I'm on Facebook as well if you want to chat. I have lots of references and whatnot of stuff that I've seen out there. And, if you need any help, just need a shoulder, somebody to talk to, I'm available most of the time. I work during the day, but you can get a hold of me. And so everybody just take care of yourselves. We have about a minute left here. I'll be back on tonight with Dreamcatchers Talk Radio. Elizabeth Roberts-Brawley, she's hosting the show tonight at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. I'm getting pretty good at saying that. You can catch that show at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, catch the archive. We're going to be talking about the actual child abuse handbook and also some new stats and statistics and what's going on out there regarding child abuse and prevention and whatnot. And we're both going to be on the show there tonight. And then I'll be on my own. I think I'll have my own show at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right after that. No, I'm sorry, 9:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So everybody take care of yourselves and just have a nice day. I wish you peace and happiness, and I just keep that hope alive. Really, you deserve it, and I deserve to have a good life. We do count. We do matter. That's what gets me through every day. Is I know that we count. We do matter, and we do deserve to have a good life. So just keep reaching out and take care of yourselves, everybody. Have a good day. Bye bye.